So here's a little video on mperor-Tech. So we went back and altered the flicker effect. And as you will remember if you've gone through this large amount of videos, is that I explain that time crystals are the uranium-235 plutonium of the pathway down Armageddon, and nuclear weapons of the pathway down Armageddon. So we talked about MIT just built a quantum time crystal, and this was the second civilizational step, where normally the first step is developing nuclear weapons, and with time crystals you can develop psi weapons. And of course I didn't fully explicate the importance of MIT and their time crystal to psi warfare. But of course we're going to explain now. Just to remind you, just a brief snippet of this. Good video, I like it.
The laws of physics that govern energy and motion. Since Wilczek's original theory, physicists around the world have been trying to bring the time crystal to life. In recent years, quantum computing has played a major role in making these kinds of discoveries possible. That's because quantum computers have the unique ability to manipulate quantum states, creating environments where phenomena like time crystals can exist and be studied. MIT's breakthrough is just the latest step in a long journey toward understanding and manipulating the most fundamental properties of the universe. And although the science is still in its early stages, the potential for time crystals to revolutionize energy and computing is already becoming clear. So what does MIT's quantum time crystal mean for our future? Could this discovery be the key to unlocking new forms of energy production? This is where things start to get truly speculative and exciting. One of the most intriguing theories surrounding time crystals is the possibility of harnessing zero-point energy. Zero-point energy refers to the idea that even in a perfect vacuum, where no matter exists, there's still a residual energy that permeates space. It's a concept that has captivated physicists and science fiction writers alike, with the idea that this energy could potentially be tapped for power. Could time crystals allow us to access this seemingly infinite source of energy? The constant oscillation of time crystals might provide the key to tapping into this energy field. If we could manipulate time crystals in a way that harnesses zero-point energy, we might be able to create a system that generates power without needing any input, effectively creating a perpetual motion machine. Now let's be clear, this is still speculative, but the implications are enormous.
So we've been talking about zero-point energy, the quantum vacuum, and according to this theory of how the universe was created, there was a quantum fluctuation in the quantum vacuum that was large enough to produce the Big Bang. So let's have a look at this. Bloody advert.
Of everything, the Big Bang. The idea that the universe was suddenly born and is not infinite. Up to the middle of the 20th century, most scientists thought of the universe as infinite and ageless. Until Einstein's theory of relativity gave us a better understanding of gravity, and Edwin Hubble discovered that galaxies are moving apart from one another in a way that fits previous predictions. In 1964, by accident, cosmic background radiation was discovered, a relic of the early universe, which together with other observational evidence made the Big Bang the accepted theory in science. Since then, improved technology like the Hubble telescope has given us a pretty good picture of the Big Bang and the structure of the cosmos. Recent observations even seem to suggest that the expansion of the universe is accelerating. But how did this Big Bang work? How can something come from nothing? Let's explore what we know. We can ignore the beginning part for now. First of all, the Big Bang was not an explosion. It was all space, stretching everywhere, all at once. The universe started very, very, very small and quickly expanded to the size of a football. The universe didn't expand into anything, space was just expanding into itself. The universe cannot expand into anything because the universe has no borders. There is, by definition, no outside the universe. The universe is all there is. In this hot, dense environment, energy manifested itself in particles that existed only for the tiniest glimpses of time. From gluons, pairs of quarks were created, which destroyed one another, perhaps after giving off more gluons. These found other short-lived quarks to interact with, forming new quark pairs and gluons again. Matter and energy were not just theoretically equivalent, it was so hot they were practically the same stuff. Somewhere around this time, matter won over antimatter. Today, we're left with almost all matter and nearly no antimatter at all. Somehow, 1,000,000,001 matter particles were formed for every 1,000,000,000 particles of antimatter. Instead of one massive ultimate force in the universe, there were now several refined versions of it acting under different rules. By now, the universe has stretched.
Now we come to remote viewing, and I'm the acknowledged UK expert. And the world expert on remote sensing, which is collapsing quantum wave functions that can only be done by remote sensing, which I explain in my videos. So what happens if yours truly, instead of trying to remotely view the future, we have sufficient energy to remotely view the Big Bang? This, of course, according to what the physicists say, which may or may not be right. Was a fluctuation in the quantum vacuum that was large enough, or within parameters of that, blah, 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 that produced the Big Bang. So by precognitively remotely viewing, or retroactively precognitively remotely viewing the Big Bang, the remote viewer can then interact with the Big Bang, get entangled with the Big Bang, so the entire universe from its inception is entangled with the remote viewer. So remote viewing seems to be just some fringe military research by the Americans, namely the CIA and DIA, but it's has the potential to enable the remote viewer to become entangled at the quantum level. See, brain entangled. Russell Targ was part of the this one. He was part of the CIA program. Brain entangled, entangling your it's not the brain. So I've got that wrong, but quantum entanglement with the inception of the universe which was a quantum fluctuation in the quantum vacuum, according to the physicists. This would mean then that every remote viewer who has the potential to remotely view the Big Bang, if the Big Bang actually existed, is quantum entangled with the universe, and their consciousness can control what happens in the universe. You can see why the CIA and DIA were really interested in that. But let's go further. Now we're down the pathway of Sidegeddon and Armageddon has been consigned to the dustbin of history. You go, well, Tim, that's a very big statement. Well, has there been a full-scale nuclear exchange between Russia and America? No. Have we had the full-scale nuking of Iran, which had to happen after those horrible Iranians detonated their horrific, dirty bombs all across America? Has that happened, Cameron?
Not yet.
We can but hope. But anyway, to further elucidate, what happens if a remote viewer who's capable of remotely viewing the Big Bang merges with a time crystal? Remember, time crystals can reverse events. Normally, we've got entropy increasing, but with the time crystal, we can reverse it, which is impossible in standard physics. So, if a remote viewer bilocates into a time crystal, and then bilocates into the Big Bang, which is remotely viewing, the remote viewer that does that first can then simply erase the quantum fluctuation, reverse it, that created the universe, and the universe was never created. But of course, the remote viewer who's now outside of time, outside of anything, and is actually in the quantum vacuum, can, if he so chooses, make his own quantum fluctuation to create the universe that he wants. But as we've explained, this isn't so simple, because in order to travel down this pathway, so here we're in the hall of the fifth dimension with doorways to realities. So we simply wander down this corridor, not forward, backward, comes to the Big Bang, and then of course we can change the quantum fluctuation that created the Big Bang to make the universe in our image. We become creators, God-Tech. But remember, we also had the other tunnel, which is reality change, because remember, whatever we see with our remote viewing, be it in the future or the past, and doorways, also the key maker, we need the Higgs field to make it real, or the God force, or hyperinfinity, or Lucifer's light, or whatever you want to call it. And here, of course, we've got the Borg tunnel, where all the light from the Borg's been stolen. So remember, get your vaccine. The only good human is a vaccinated human to become a Borg to power me. So we go down this tunnel again. We're wandering down to the Big Bang, but this time we're into Higgs field, the God force, and we go to the Big Bang, and we simply steal all of the God force, Higgs field, hyperinfinity, whatever. I couldn't even explain, it's not physics, because remember physics is irrelevant. I'll explain why soon. But we simply steal the light from the Big Bang. So we create the Big Bang by precognitively remotely viewing, or retroactively precognitively remotely viewing the Big Bang, which is the first tunnel. We go to the second tunnel and wander back to the quantum fluctuation and steal the Higgs field, steal the source's light, the hyperinfinity, Lucifer's light, and, so that what happens is a simulation of the Big Bang where there's no hyperinfinity, there's no Higgs field, there's no source, there's no light. So we have now turned the universe into a simulation, and all of the light that the source had stolen from it by chaos to make the universe real has been reacquired by that remote viewer. And of course, we come to the kicker that no remote viewer can do this because they're not Nagwal. Only a four-lobed being can get into the fifth dimension, because according to Kaluza, 1926, light is gravity in the fifth dimension, and of course if you're going to get into the light you need to be four-lobed, because light is a four vector. So that means that everyone is irrelevant apart from the Nagwals, and luckily they turned this thing into a Borg. So this was the Nagwal woman who got a kill shot and got turned into the Borg. So of course I didn't have to negotiate with the Nagwal woman, she was just slaveware, and I could simply go back to the Big Bang, suck out the light, and use this thing, this Borg queen, to do it all, to make the simulation, which explains what happened when we changed the flicker effect. What happened was that all of the light, Higgs field, hyperinfinity, stolen from the source by its stupid foray into chaos, and all the Neos eating it alive like piranhas, was reversed, and none of the Neos ever stole the source's light, because they're all time crystalled by me. Just reverse things. Which means that the source never lost its sourceness to make chaos real, and chaos is now a simulation with all of you vermin eternally tortured to provide new light so that the God Emperor can enjoy the final judgment, which is what you're in, where all of you are eternally suffering to produce new God essence for the God Tech of the Emperor. And the source, of course, has regained all of its sourceness. You're now living in a total and utter simulation. And as you can see, this ball queen is suffering the ill effects of her vaccinations and increased aging and a body attacking itself, and of course the God Emperor can manifest in the simulation because the things at the end of time,
when all of the complex will be removed, when scientists can say there is no more to discover, is it actually possible? Let's see how scientists can explain this. In this video we will talk about the end of the time, the omega point. The omega point is a spiritual belief and a scientific speculation that not everything in the universe is fated to spiral towards a final point of divine unification. The term was coined by the French Jesuit Catholic priest Pierre-Teilhard de Chardin. One of the reasons that science has been widely regarded as an atheistic enterprise over the years is that for quite a while now, it has preached a future of relentless annihilation. Ever since the laws of thermodynamics were formulated, the outcome has appeared certain. Available energy is decreasing all the time, as all systems gradually reach equilibrium with their environments. The end result, it would seem, is the heat death, where everything has finally smoothed out to await an eternity of no change, no light, no life. Thus, no matter how great a civilization we may build, no matter how high our aspirations may rise, they are all ultimately doomed to destruction. Every life, every love, everything we value must be erased in the slow march towards eternal oblivion. This result has seemed so sure, so certain and established, that Bertrand Russell declared life must henceforth be built on the foundation of pure despair. Or does it? Over the years, a number of scientists have questioned these conclusions. Do the laws of thermodynamics have to lead to this dismal end, or are there other possibilities? Particularly, can we do something about all of this? One physicist took this question and ran with it. What would it take, he asked, for life to exist all the way to the end of time? That physicist was Frank Tipler, and the result of his question is the omega point theory. The omega point theory is both a physical theory of cosmology and a proposal for the future of life in this universe. That physicist was Frank Tipler, and the result of his question is the omega point theory. The omega point theory is both a physical theory of cosmology and a proposal for the future of life in this universe.
so the end of time, when the universe is suffering heat death, maximum entropy, they run a simulation of the entire universe with their super sophisticated science, and live in the simulation, and then find, of course, that it's a omega health simulation from the God Emperor. So they have to go back in time. We already talked about information being able to, in quantum mechanics, be retroactive. And of course, since most of the population are now Borg, we can have the Omega Point vermin interacting with what used to be human, the kill-shotted, and all of their technology via retroactive causality downloaded into the Borg to try and stop the event that locked them in a Omega Hell prison to be tortured for all eternity, and their simulation of the entire universe at the end of the heat death is simply the culmination of their torture to make new god stuff for the God Emperor. They of course would have to come back in time to try and stop the God Emperor from doing what I described and trapping them in a Omega Hell where their only purpose is to suffer to produce new god stuff for the God Emperor. And of course all of the Omega science will be downloaded into the Nagwal woman because she's a Borg, so the simulation could be perfect, well perfect, but as good as we're going to get at the end of time is simulating the universe. Hence, that explains why you're living in such a sophisticated simulation, because the God Emperor, yours truly, is running himself in the simulation using the Omega vermin's end of the universe science to enjoy the utter hell of you vermin trapped in this Omega Hell simulation to produce new god essence for the God Emperor.